Hi everybody, it's Connie from Scuff Designs. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Thank you for being here. I am a furniture painter and I'm also a brand ambassador for Dixie Belle Paint. In the video today, I've actually got a pair of matching pieces, part of a set, and they're quite modern. So I've given them a classic kind of modern apothecary look, if that's even a thing. It is now. And super easy, really simple. And I've also used Dixie Belle's Howdy Do Hemp Oil to seal it with. So if you struggle with top coats, especially over dark colours, this might be a video for you. So first step is to take off all of the existing handles. Okay, so I've taken all of the drawers out. I have taken the handles off, which was actually a longer task than what I originally anticipated. It took me about 45 minutes to get all those handles off. The screws in the backs of the knobs were very worn. So it tested my patience, hence why I didn't show the entire thing. I cut the camera off because I was ready to flip. Anyway, they're out. It's done. Next product I'm going to use is Dixie Belle's White Lightning Cleaner. There we go. It's a granulated cleaner, so it goes a long way. You see the granules in there? And I have a bucket, and you just basically add some of the granules in. I don't measure because that's how I roll. There are directions on the back if you want to follow them. But I just plop a little bit in warm water. I always use warm water because I just think it cleans better. And my usual thing that I clean with is a microfiber cloth. Sometimes I use a scouring sponge. Just depends on how dirty the piece is. And that's it. Just give them a really good scrub with this and then rinse it off with clean water. Whilst you're cleaning the piece, this is a really good time to check inside for dust and spiders sometimes, cobwebs. Check underneath all the drawers and the backs of the drawers as well. Okay, so the next step is to sand the pieces. So I'm going for kind of like a two-tone look on these. The main body and carcass framework, if you like, is going to be Caviar, and the drawer fronts I'm going to do a wash of coffee bean, I think, on them. So I want to get rid of that like sort of varnish, that warm toned varnish. I've already done one drawer front here. It's sanded back really easily. This is the sander that I use. It's a Festool, and it's got a dust extractor system. That's what the big hose is. So it sucks all the dust away so I can sand inside. So that's taken all of that. Where's another one? There we go. So you can see the difference. That's taken that orangey kind of warm tone varnish off, and it's gone back to bare wood. So I'm only going to do that on the drawer fronts and the cupboard door, and then the rest of the pieces I'm just going to do a scuff sand because I'm going to paint those, so I don't need to take that back right back to the sort of wood grain on those. Just need to give them a scuff sand because they're quite shiny, just to give that paint something to grip onto. I've sped this part up so you can see that I'm using my sander to take off the existing varnish and reveal the wood grain underneath. When you do this, so if you're taking something back to the bare wood, if you're staining or doing a paint wash over a wood grain, always make sure you are sanding with the direction of the grain and not against it. Okay, so that's 14 drawer fronts sanded. The varnish has been sanded back completely to the raw wood. And I've done the same to the door. Still not sure whether I'm going to stain the door with a wash of coffee bean like the drawer fronts, or whether I'm going to paint this black as per the rest of it. So I have sanded it back anyway, and you can see there's a little recessed area all the way around. My sander has managed to get in the grooves quite well, But if you are struggling to remove the last little bits of varnish, you can take a piece of sandpaper. This is just a sanding pad from my Festool that has pretty much lost most of its grip. Fold it over and you can get in all the little corners to kind of try and get most of the varnish off. You could use a stripper as well. You could use a chemical stripper to remove that varnish. I'm actually not too bothered about the varnish in some of the creases and corners because it's going to add a little bit of natural shading and sort of tonal variation to the final thing. It's not going to just be so one-dimensional. So I'm not actually too bothered. Also, please excuse the dodgy plug here. That's not safety first. And that's a dog in the background. So I'm just going to remove most of it, but I'm not too fussed about getting it absolutely perfectly removed because I'm going to use that to my advantage. I just thought I'd show you the difference between a scuff sand and removing something back to completely bare wood. A lot of people get confused when I say a scuff sand, because I say it quite flippantly, like you should know what I'm talking about, but I am aware that sometimes people don't. So, let me scooch. That bit there, all of this around, you can see how it's gone kind of hazy and a little bit, looks like it's a bit dusty. It is a bit dusty, but that's scuff sanded. So all you need to do is take that shine off of a piece. You do not need to take it all the way back to bare wood. You can if you want to, but it's a lot of extra work, especially if you're painting. It's not necessary. All you need to do is scuff that shiny surface up, give it a little bit of something to grip onto, because what you're doing is just creating a rougher texture for the paint to hold onto, as opposed to a perfectly smooth finish, which is more likely to get chips and flake off. So that's scuff sanded, and that's one of the drawers that I took back to bare wood. So it's a bit of a difference. This takes a lot more time, and this takes absolutely no time at all. So I've taken all the 14 drawers back to bare wood. I've done the door, and now I'm just going to scuff sand the rest of the pieces ready for painting. And here's a sped up version of me scuff sanding the top. You can just see all I'm doing is taking that shine off. Okay, so it's been scuff sanded all over. The door's been sanded back to the wood, and the final step of prep is to remove any dust on the surface of your piece. I'm going to use a damp microfiber cloth. And this is just to stop that dust, that fine dust that's on the surface of the piece from sanding. Even though I've got a dustless sander with a vacuum, there's still dust on it. I can feel it. So you don't want all those bits of dust getting mixed up in your paint. So just grab a microfiber cloth. It can be dry or wet. I just usually use a damp one, and just remove the dust off the surface. Now onto the fun part, we can get painting. So the first thing I'm going to do is mix together some coffee bean, which is a very, very dark, that's not coffee bean. This is coffee bean. I'm going to mix coffee bean, chalk mineral paint, which is a really, really dark, rich brown, into a tub. This is, it used to be White Lightning. I keep all my empty pots because they're really good with having screw lids to keep paint washes and custom colours and things like that. So all I'm going to do is chuck some coffee bean in. I want this to be quite a dark mixture, so I'm putting a fair old bit of paint in, and some water. So all a paint wash is water and paint mixed together. I'm going to use this a little bit like a stain. I'm going to want it really dark brown, and hopefully you'll see the wood grain peeking through. So I have coffee bean wash, and I'm just going to try it out on this door. I've just started to put a little bit here, and I quite like the consistency. So it's going on very, very watery, but because Dixie Belle is really, really pigmented, it's still got that really, really, really deep, rich colour. Really, really, really. So before your paint wash dries, if you want to see some of the wood grain peeking through, you can actually wipe back some of that paint wash. So it's going to soak into the wood because we sanded it right back to the wood grain. And now I'm hoping if I take a damp rag, it's going to just remove the excess, so it'll be kind of, you can see the wood grain, hopefully. So that worked, and you can see that it's darkened the wood grain. It's taken off that pale wood tone that we had before. It's darkened the wood grain, and it's just left a nice subtle deep brown colour. If you want to deepen this again, you can put multiple washes over your piece. It depends on the colour saturation that you want, depends how much wood grain you want seeing poking through, and it also depends on the type of wood that you are going over the top of and how porous it is. Now I'm going to apply the paint wash over the 7,000 drawers that we've sanded back to raw wood. So each one is going to have exactly the same treatment as the door, so it kind of will hopefully all match. So the drawer fronts are drying next to my heater, and we are going to do the main body of the piece. So I'm using Dixie Belle's Caviar, which is a true black, really, really jet black. And I'm also using, to apply it, a Dixie Belle synthetic mini brush. These are my absolute favourite, and I'm going to use a little spritz of water as I go. This just makes the paint go a little bit further because it is super pigmented, and it just helps the paint glide on. So these pieces required 2 coats of Caviar to cover fully, and leave around about 2 hours between coats to ensure that it's dried out fully. I also changed my mind and painted over the door that I previously did a colour wash on, just wasn't feeling it, so that went Caviar as well. One of the last things that I did was add a little bit of dimension to the drawer fronts. So I'm using the French tip brush with dry bristles. I'm not putting any water on, and all I did is added a very, very small amount of Caviar to the brush, wipe the excess off, and I'm just almost shading the edges of the drawers, which is just going to add a little bit of dimension and shading. So I left the pieces to dry completely overnight to make sure that they were thoroughly dry, and now we are going to seal them. I am using Howdy Do Hemp Oil to seal my pieces. So I've just decanted some into a tub, and I'm using a premium chip brush to apply the oil all over the pieces. It's going over the drawer fronts, and it's also going over the main body of the pieces as well. So you can see how quick and easy this is to apply. It really is this simple, and it's best used over deeper and darker colours. Just beware that over whites and neutral colours, hemp oil can sort of turn a little bit amber or yellow, so I usually only use hemp oil over darker colours. It's exactly the same process over the pieces where I'd painted in Caviar. So just take your chip brush or your cloth and apply it liberally, easy for me to say, all over the surface of your piece. Then allow it to sit for 10 or 20 minutes or so, and rub off the excess. Now with hemp oil, it only will get absorbed as much as the substrate allows, so you may have to revisit your piece in a couple of hours and wipe back any pooling that occurs, and then I usually recheck it after 24 hours just to make sure there isn't any other areas of pooling that's happened with the hemp oil. And that's it. I added some black cast iron card holder handles to complete the Apothecary look, and there's the small chest of drawers and the matching piece to go with it. Thank you for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it and you found it useful. And if you've got any questions, as always, pop them below in the comments, and make sure you are subscribing to my channel.